Before my best friend lost her battle with cancer, her single biggest regret was the online boyfriend she had never met. She gripped my hand in her final hospital bed, crying as she begged me, Aria, he has severe depression. I'm so scared he won't be able to handle this. Please log into my account for me, just distance yourself slowly. Wait a long time, and then break up with him, promise me. With red-rimmed eyes, I promised her. I took her dying wish to heart. For 3 entire years, I mimicked her tone, accompanying that man through a screen. I talked him down from his worst depressive episodes and supported him until his career peaked again. Then I slowly began to pull away. Today, I finally decided 3 years was long enough. It was enough time for him to let go of a romance that had already gone ice cold. I typed out the message and hit send. We shouldn't contact each other anymore, let's break up. The exact second I tapped the screen, the private cell phone sitting on Sebastian's coffee table lit up. Right there on his lock screen, the breakup text I had just sent flashed in plain sight. Aria, the water is perfect, go ahead and soak for a bit. I'll be right out as soon as I dry my hair. Sebastian's voice drifted out from the steamed-up bathroom, gentle and considerate as always. Stood completely frozen in the middle of the living room. My eyes were glued to the profile picture on his screen. It was the exact account I've been operating for 3 solid years. We shouldn't contact each other anymore. Let us break up, word for word. It was exactly what I had just typed. The bathroom door clicked open. Sebastian walked out with a towel wrapped around his waist, rubbing his damp hair. When he saw me standing rigidly by the coffee table, his footsteps paused. What's wrong? You look incredibly pale. He walked over, habitually reaching out to pull me in by the waist. Took a violent step backward. My lower back slammed into the armrest of the sofa, the hardwood digging painfully into my spine. His hands hovered awkwardly in the air. Aria, he followed my line of sight down to the glowing phone on the glass table. His entire face instantly turned to stone. The phone vibrated again. It was the custom notification sound he had set specifically for that account. He lunged for the table, snatching the phone up. His thumbs were physically trembling as he unlocked the screen, staring at those words. He read them over and over 3 times in a row. No, his voice was barely a whisper. She wouldn't do this. He started typing. Frantically, he would type a sentence, delete it, type another, and delete it again. He couldn't send a single word. Then he pulled up the contact and hit call once, twice, 3 times. Deep in my coat pocket, my best friend's old phone sat completely silent. I always kept it on mute, terrified he might discover I was playing someone else's girlfriend online and misunderstand. Pick up. Please just pick up the phone. His voice was shaking violently. Sweat beaded on his forehead. I had never seen him lose his composure like this. No, wait, I had seen it. I had seen it in Stella's chat history, when his depression had been at its absolute worst. He had begged me exactly like this, pleading with her not to abandon him. But in the real world, the face he showed me was always perfectly composed, flawless and utterly polite. Sebastian, I finally spoke. He didn't even register my voice. He just kept hitting redial. Sebastian, he snapped his head up. His eyes were bloodshot, his face twisted in raw, volatile rage. Shut up. The words struck me like a physical blow. I stared at him in pure shock for a second. Then, I let out a dry laugh. He seemed to snap out of his trance. He quickly apologized, his tone instantly morphing back into that polite, detached mask. I'm sorry, I just have something urgent to handle. He brushed past me and walked straight to the closet, tearing through his clothes. What's so urgent? He was pulling his shirt on with such frantic force that a button popped off and rolled across the floor. He didn't even look at it. An emergency. He refused to meet my eyes. What emergency? We have our final wedding dress fitting tomorrow morning. His movement stalled. He finally spared me a fraction of a glance. There was zero guilt in his eyes, only the deep irritation of being held back. Go to the fitting by yourself. Pick whatever style you want. I'll reimburse you. Reimburse me. I repeated the words slowly. Sebastian, do you seriously think there is anything more important right now than our wedding? His face turned completely frigid. He looked at me like he was analyzing a stranger. You've always been so mature, Aria. Why are you suddenly being so unreasonable? Didn't wait for my answer. He grabbed his car keys and slammed the front door behind him. Miss Lynn is your fiancé, too busy to make it today as well. Inside the luxury bridal boutique, the bridal consultant wore a tight, professional smile. Everyone in the room could read the pity hidden in her voice. I sat alone in front of the massive floor-to-ceiling mirror. This was the second time he had ghosted our fitting. The hushed gossip of the boutique staff drifted directly into my ears. That's her, just a freelance illustrator. Who knows how she managed to sink her claws into a top designer like Mr. Sebastian. He hasn't showed up to a single fitting. I'll bet money this wedding doesn't even happen. I ignored them. Inside the private dressing room, I pulled out my best friend's old phone. The screen was flooded with hundreds of unread messages from Sebastian. Stella, why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? Tell me what it is. I'll change. I swear I'll change. Just answer the phone, please, just for 1 second. Stella, are you throwing me away? I'm begging you, please don't throw me away. At the very bottom was a 60-second voice memo. I stared at it for a long time before my thumb pressed play. He was choking back heavy sobs. I could hear the roar of a car engine in the background. Stella, I'm sorry, please give me one more chance. I'll die without you, I will actually die. The man who had told me to shut up last night, the man who called me unreasonable, was currently hyperventilating in tears through another screen. A sharp knock hit the dressing room door. Miss Lynn, Mr. Cole is here to see you. Cole, Sebastian's childhood best friend. I hurriedly wiped my face, changed out of the heavy gown, and walked out. Cole was lounging on the velvet sofa, with his legs crossed. When he saw me, he pulled a sleek, black Amex card from his wallet and slapped it onto the glass table. Here to pay the balance. The man is busy. He doesn't have time to sit around watching you play dress up. He stood up, walking into my personal space and lowering his voice. Let me give you some real talk, Aria. You know exactly why Sebastian picked you. You're obedient. You're low maintenance, you don't cause drama. He's giving you the title of his wife. So just sit quietly and enjoy the perks. Don't go looking for actual love. That fairy tale crap has absolutely nothing to do with you. I raised my hand to slap him across the face. He caught my wrist midair, his grip like a vice. Pissed off, he squeezed my bones a little tighter. Consider this a warning. Sebastian is in a really dark headspace right now. So don't push your luck if you don't want this ring. There is a line of women out the door waiting to take your place. He shoved my hand away. I stumbled back a couple of steps. The pin is his birthday. Pick whatever dress you want. You're only going to wear it once anyway. He smoothed out the lapels of his suit and walked out. I stood alone in the center of the massive empty boutique. In my pocket, my fiancé was crying his heart out for an alternate version of me. On the table sat the black card his best friend had thrown in my face. Miss Lynn, are you satisfied with this gown? The consultant asked carefully. No, cancel the order. I felt completely lightheaded by the time I took a cab home. I crawled into bed early, shivering under the covers. In the middle of the night, a brutal, stabbing cramp ripped through my abdomen. Cold sweat soaked my pajamas in seconds and black spots danced across my vision. I blindly reached for my phone and dialed Sebastian's number. It rang endlessly before he finally picked up. What the background noise was unmistakable. It was an airport intercom announcement. My heart plunged straight into my stomach. Sebastian, my stomach hurts so badly, I can't stand up. Can you please come home and take me to the hospital? The line went dead silent for a few agonizing seconds. Aria, I'm dealing with an actual emergency. Right now you are an adult. Just order a cab yourself. An emergency? His precious Stella wanted to break up him. That was a matter of life and death. I lay curled on the hardwood floor, my fingers completely numb, operated by some dark, twisted impulse. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my best friend's phone, and typed 3 words. I want to see you, and in the exact same second I heard Sebastian screaming at a ticketing agent through the phone pressed to my ear. Change the flight. Change it right now. Give me the next flight to Seattle. I don't care what it costs, just put me on that plane. Seattle. That was the random city I had picked years ago to make Stella's fake persona more believable. He really was at the airport. He was really abandoning me to bleed out on the floor, all to chase down a ghost. Sebastian, I spoke weakly into the receiver. What if I die today? His voice was a razor blade carved from ice. Stop threatening me with death. This dramatic personality of yours is genuinely suffocating. I lay on the floor staring blankly at the ceiling. A fresh wave of agony shredded my abdomen, 10 times worse than the last. I curled into a tight ball, my consciousness slipping away. Clinging to my last shred of sanity, I dialed 911. Perforated acute appendicitis. If she had arrived 10 minutes later, the sepsis would have killed her. Where is her family? We don't even have anyone to sign the surgical consent forms. The surgery took 3 hours. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Not a single call or text came from Sebastian. Meanwhile, my best friend's phone was bombarded with hundreds of frantic messages every single day. Stella, I landed in Seattle. Where are you? I've searched everywhere you told me about. Why won't you see me? I'm sitting in that cafe you love. I'm going to wait here until you show up. I turned off the burner phone with zero emotion. It was raining. The day they discharged me, I processed my own paperwork, hailed a cab, and rode back to the penthouse I had called home for 3 years. I pushed the door open. Everything was exactly as I had left it. I pulled out my suitcase and started packing. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. The expensive clothes he had bought me were neatly folded and left in the closet. I only packed the cheap things I had bought with my own money. In the study, I threw a dust cover over the easel and expensive paints he had gifted me. Piece by piece, I meticulously erased every single trace of my existence from that penthouse. When Sebastian finally walked through the front door, this was the scene he walked into. He had waited in Seattle for 3 days. He never found Stella. He looked utterly destroyed. His jaw was covered in dark stubble, and his eyes were completely bloodshot. When he saw me zipping up my suitcase, he froze. "What are you doing?" His voice was gravelly. I didn't answer. I leaned over carefully, moved the potted monstera plant from the coffee table to the floor, and slipped the engagement ring off my finger. It was a flawless pink diamond. He had slid it onto my hand himself. The night he proposed, he had looked me in the eyes and said, "Aria, marry me, let me take care of you for the rest of your life." Placed the ring right next to my house keys, perfectly centered on the glass table. "Aria, I asked you a question." His tone spiked with anger. He took 2 large strides across the room and grabbed my wrist. "What kind of tantrum is this now?" I looked up at him. "I'm not throwing a tantrum, Sebastian." He flinched slightly. He let go of my wrist, rubbing his temples as he forced his voice to soften. "Fine, I admit I had a bad attitude the other night." Pulled a premium credit card from his wallet and forced it into my hand. "I'll double your allowance this month. Put the ring back on and stop making a scene." Money, it was always money. That night my appendix ruptured. My voice was eerily calm. I almost dyed his fingers. Instantly went slack. Raw panic flashed across his face. But he quickly shoved it down. "Was it serious?" The surgeon said 10 more minutes and I would have been in the morgue. His lips parted. I struggled to form the words, "I'm sorry." "Save it." I pushed the credit card, the ring and the keys back toward his side of the table. "I don't need your apology, and I have absolutely no intention of forgiving you." I grabbed the handle of my suitcase and turned toward the door. He lunged forward, wrapping his arms tightly around me from behind. His grip was desperate. "Aria, please. Just listen to me. I swear to God, I had a massive emergency that night." "I know." I stared straight ahead. "Your precious Stella wanted to break up with you." His entire body went rigid. How do you know about that?" I pried his fingers off my waist, turned around and offered him a polite smile. "Because I've always known Sebastian." He took a half step back, every drop of blood draining from his face. Then his expression shifted. The panic vanished. It was instantly replaced by the ruthless, predatory coldness he used to crush his rivals in the boardroom. "You investigated me." "It doesn't matter." I lifted my suitcase. "We are done. The wedding is cancelled." "Aria." His voice struck my back like a whip. "Have you actually thought this through?" I didn't stop walking. "What can you possibly do on your own? Draw little pictures. Can you even make rent in a month?" My knuckles turned white around the suitcase handle. "Once you walk out that door, you have no safety net." I pulled the door open. "You're going to regret this." The hallway was dead silent. I dragged my suitcase toward the elevator and never looked back. The elevator door slid shut with a soft, metallic sigh, cutting off the view of Sebastian's elegant, high-ceilinged hallway. In the mirrored reflection of the elevator cabin, I looked at myself. My skin was still the translucent gray of someone who had spent 3 days surviving on 4 fluids and shallow breaths. The surgical incision beneath my clothes throbbed, a sharp, hot warning to slow down, but the air inside the small, moving steel box tasted cleaner than anything I had breathed in 3 years. I dragged my suitcase through the lobby. The doorman, who had spent years nodding to me with a polite, distant respect reserved for a wealthy man's quiet accessory, looked up. He opened his mouth, perhaps to ask where my driver was, but I simply gave him a small, polite nod and pushed through the heavy glass doors into the cool autumn rain. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have a luxury sedan waiting. What I did have was a modest savings account from my freelance illustration work, money Sebastian had always looked down upon as coffee expenses, and the address of a small, drafty studio apartment in the old industrial district, rented under my own name 3 days ago for my hospital bed. The cab ride was long and quiet. The city blurred outside the window, a smear of neon and wet gray asphalt. I leaned my head against the cold glass, my hand resting instinctively over my coat pocket where my best friend's old phone lay. It was switched off. For the first time in 36 months, the screen was dark, cold, and silent. When I reached the studio, it was exactly what I could afford: a single room with exposed brick, a narrow iron-frame bed, and a large window that faced a brick wall covered in withered ivy. It was drafty, and the radiator clanked like a dying engine, but as I sat down on the edge of the mattress and listened to the rain strike the glass, a strange, quiet peace settled over my chest. My phone, my actual, personal phone, vibrated on the wooden floor. It was a text from Cole. "Aria, stop playing games. Sebastian is furious. He has an international design showcase in 2 weeks. If you aren't back in the penthouse by tomorrow to handle the catering and the guest list, don't expect him to welcome you back easily. You've had your little tantrum. Now grow up. I stared at the screen. A year ago, a message like this would have sent a spike of anxiety straight through my chest. I would have spent hours drafting a polite, apologetic response, trying to explain my side while keeping the peace. I tapped his name, hit block, and did the same to Sebastian's number. Then, I unpacked my few belongings. I set up my old wooden easel by the window. I laid out my brushes, my charcoal sticks, and my watercolor pans. My fingers were trembling, not from fear, but from a raw, long-forgotten hunger to create. For 3 years, I had painted what Sebastian wanted me to paint, muted, abstract corporate backdrops that matched his minimalist showrooms. I picked up a piece of rough, heavy grain paper. I dipped my brush into deep, dark indigo. I began to paint. For the next 10 days, the world narrowed down to the smell of linseed oil, the dry scrape of charcoal, and the slow, agonizing healing of my body. My appetite returned slowly. I learned to cook simple meals on a single-burner stove. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of pigeons on the windowsill instead of Sebastian's cold, structured schedule. But while my world was quiet, Sebastian's was descending into a frantic, chaotic tailspin. I knew this because of the burner phone. One evening, out of a morbid curiosity and a lingering sense of duty to my promise to Stella, I turned it on. The moment the screen flickered to life, the phone froze. It vibrated continuously for 3 solid minutes, the processor struggling to handle the sheer volume of missed calls, voice notes, and messages. Stella, please. I'm still in Seattle. I've gone to every art gallery, every park, every coffee shop you ever mentioned. Why won't you meet me? I know I've been distant. I know I didn't tell you about Aria. She's nobody, Stella. She's just someone my family wanted me to marry for stability. I don't love her. I've never loved anyone but you. Please. I can't breathe. My chest feels like it's collapsing. The design showcase is in 5 days and I haven't been able to draw a single line. I need your voice. Just 10 seconds. Please. The voice notes were the worst. I played one. Sebastian's voice, usually so sharp, precise, and commanding, sounded like it had been dragged through gravel. He was hyperventilating, his words slurring as if he were drunk or heavily medicated. Stella, I'm sitting in the rain outside the library you liked. I bought 2 cups of coffee. They're both cold now. If you don't answer me, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go back to that empty penthouse. It feels like a tomb. I listened to it with a profound, hollow detachment. This was the man who, when I was curled on the kitchen floor bleeding internally from a ruptured organ, told me my dramatic personality was suffocating. This was the man who told me to take a cab to the hospital alone because he was dealing with an actual emergency. The actual emergency was sitting in a Seattle coffee shop with 2 cold cups of paper coffee, waiting for a girl who had died of gastric cancer in a municipal hospital 3 years ago. I turned the phone off again. I felt no satisfaction, no petty joy in his misery, only a deep, exhausting pity for how pathetic we both had been, him chasing a ghost, and me pretending to be one just to keep a dying girl's promise. The next day, my peace was shattered. I was walking back to my studio from the local grocery store, carrying a bag of fresh vegetables, when a sleek, black sedan pulled up onto the curb, blocking my path. The back door flew open and Cole stepped out. His expensive Italian suit was perfectly tailored, but his face was tight with irritation. He looked around the rundown, industrial street with visible disgust before his eyes locked onto me. So this is where you've been hiding, Cole said, stepping into my path. I had to pay a private investigator 20 grand to find this godforsaken alley. Quite a drop from the penthouse, Aria. Are you done playing the martyr? I didn't stop walking. I tried to step around him, but he reached out and grabbed my upper arm. His grip was tight, deliberately painful. I'm talking to you, Aria, he sneered. Sebastian is on the verge of a total breakdown. His showcase is in 3 days. The media is asking why the lead designer looks like a corpse, and he's completely uncommunicative. You need to come back. Now. Pack your things, put on a decent dress, and stand by his side for the cameras. We'll handle the wedding details later. I looked down at his hand on my arm. Then I looked up into his eyes. Let go of me, Cole, I said, my voice quiet but entirely steady. Or what? He laughed, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You'll call the cops? You'll ruin your own chances of ever marrying into the high society you scrambled so hard to reach? Don't be stupid. You're a freelance illustrator. Without Sebastian, you're nothing but a starving artist drawing caricatures in the park. I repeated, each word cold and deliberate. Let go of me. I reached into my grocery bag, pulled out a glass bottle of olive oil, and brought it down hard against the brick wall beside him. The glass shattered with a sharp, violent crack, oil dripping onto his expensive leather shoes. I held the jagged neck of the broken bottle inches from his face. Cole froze. His face went pale, his eyes widening in genuine shock. He took a hasty step back, releasing my arm. "You're crazy," he breathed, looking at me as if he were seeing a stranger. "You've completely lost your mind. Tell Sebastian that if he, or anyone associated with him, comes near me again, I won't just block his number," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I will take every single design draft he stole from my sketchbooks over the last 3 years and send them directly to his main competitor. I kept the original timestamps, Cole. Don't test me." I threw the broken bottle into a trash bin, picked up my groceries, and walked past him. He didn't follow me. The night of Sebastian's autumn showcase arrived. It was the biggest event of the year for his luxury design house. The theme was Whispers of the Soul, a collection that was supposed to represent his deepest, most vulnerable creative genius. I sat in my small studio, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, with my laptop open on my knees. I was watching a live stream of the red carpet. The venue was magnificent, a glass pavilion decorated with thousands of white roses and delicate, floating silk panels. The elite of the city were there, dressed in diamonds and velvet, sipping champagne. Then, the camera turned to the entrance as Sebastian arrived. The crowd gasped, and even through the screen, the tension was palpable. Sebastian looked awful. He had lost a significant amount of weight in the last 2 weeks. His tailor tuxedo hung loosely off his broad shoulders. His cheekbones were sharp, his eyes sunken and surrounded by dark, hollow shadows. He didn't smile. He didn't acknowledge the flashing cameras. He walked with a stiff, mechanical gait, his hand clutching his pocket where I knew his phone was hidden. Beside him, Cole was desperately trying to direct the reporters, his smile tight and artificial. "Mr. Sebastian, is it true that your wedding with Miss Aria Lynn has been called off?" A reporter yelled over the din. "Mr. Sebastian, there are rumors that your new collection was heavily inspired by an anonymous muse. Can you comment on that?" Sebastian paused. He slowly turned his head toward the reporter who had asked about his muse. His voice, picked up by the directional microphones, was hollow. "My muse is the only reason I draw. She is my light, but she has lost her way. I am waiting for her to come home." The crowd erupted into whispers. "What about Aria? Who is he talking about? Is there another woman?" I watched the screen, a bitter, cold feeling settling in my stomach. The muse he was publicly pining for was Stella, or rather, the digital ghost I had spent 3 years constructing to keep him from jumping off a bridge. He was declaring his love for a shadow while the woman who had actually cooked his meals, kept his secrets, and nearly died for him was sitting in a drafty studio eating instant noodles. Suddenly, the live stream feed shifted. The runway show began. The lights dimmed, and the models began to walk out, wearing garments of stunning, intricate design, flowing silks in shades of bruised purple, midnight blue, and stormy gray. My heart stopped. I leaned closer to the screen, my breath catching in my throat. The embroidery on the back of the lead model's gown, a delicate, sprawling pattern of withered vines and a single, bleeding silver rose. The silhouette of the second dress, an asymmetrical drape that mimicked the wings of a fallen bird. These weren't his designs. They were mine. They were sketches I had drawn in my private notebook during the long nights when I couldn't sleep, nights when I was recovering from Stella's death and trying to find solace in my art. Sebastian had found my notebook in his study. He had praised them, calling them interesting doodles, and asked if he could keep them for reference. He hadn't just used them for reference. He had copied them, stitch for stitch, line for line, and put his own name on them. I stood up, the wool blanket sliding to the floor. My hands were shaking, not with sadness, but with a roaring, hot fury that burned away every last shred of my hesitation. He had taken my youth. He had taken my care. He had taken my health. And now, he had taken my soul's work and paraded it as his own. I walked over to my desk, picked up my best friend's old phone, and turned it on. I didn't send a text. I opened the chat window with Sebastian, took a deep breath, and sent a single physical location pin. My studio apartment address. Then, I added one sentence. "I'm ready to meet you, Sebastian. Come alone." 20 minutes. That was how long it took for the screech of tires to echo in the narrow alleyway below my window. I stood in the center of my studio. The room was dark, lit only by the amber glow of the streetlights outside and a single desk lamp that cast long, dramatic shadows across my canvases. Heavy, frantic footsteps sprinted up the wooden stairs. The door didn't just open, it was thrown back with such violence that it slammed against the wall, the hinges groaning. Sebastian stood in the doorway. He was panting, his tuxedo jacket gone, his white shirt wrinkled and damp from the rain. His hair was a wild, tangled mess, and his eyes, wide, bloodshot and completely manic, swept over the room. "Stella," he gasped, his voice cracking. "Stella, where are you?" "I'm here. I came as soon as..." His voice died in his throat. His eyes landed on me. I was sitting on a wooden stool by my easel, my arms crossed, watching him with a cold, unblinking gaze. He blinked, shaking his head as if trying to clear a hallucination. He looked around the small, cramped studio, his eyes darting to the corner, to the bathroom door, to the small kitchen alcove. Aria, he said, his tone instantly shifting from desperate longing to sharp, defensive irritation. What the hell are you doing here? How did you get Stella's phone? Where is she? He took 3 large strides toward me, his hand reaching out to grab my shoulder. Did you steal her phone? Did you hack her account to lure me here? Answer me. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I reached down, picked up the burner phone from a small table beside me, and unlocked the screen. I opened the voice recorder app. I pressed play on the latest voice note he had sent Stella just 2 hours ago, right before his showcase. Stella, the show is starting. Everyone is clapping, but it's all hollow. If you don't come to me, I'm going to end it all tonight. I swear to God I'll jump. Just like 3 years ago. Please save me again. The sound of his own weeping, desperate voice filled the quiet room. Sebastian froze. The color drained from his face, so fast he looked like he might faint. He stared at the phone in my hand, then at my face, his lips parting but no sound coming out. You, he whispered, his voice trembling violently. You had her phone. You're her friend. You stole her life. You've been pretending to be her this whole time to mock me? Pretending? I let out a dry, quiet laugh that sounded incredibly sad, even to my own ears. Sebastian, look at the screen. I swiped back in the chat history. I scrolled up, past 3 years of daily messages, past the late-night panic attacks I had talked him down from, past the design critiques I had given him under Stella's name, past the deep, soul-bearing secrets he had only ever shared with a screen. Stella died, I said, my voice steady, carrying the weight of a heavy, undeniable truth. She died of gastric cancer in the municipal hospital 3 years ago, the exact day before you met me in person for the first time. No, Sebastian roared, his hands fly to his head, gripping his hair. No. That's a lie. She was alive. She talked to me every day. She comforted me when my father died. She told me how to structure my autumn collection. She was real. She was real, I said softly. But the person talking to you for the last 3 years wasn't Stella. It was me. I stood up from the stool, taking a step toward him. He shrank back, his eyes filled with a terrifying, primal horror. Stella's dying wish was for me to look after you. I continued, my voice echoing in the small room. She knew how fragile you were. She knew you had severe depression, and she was terrified that if she died, you would follow her. So she begged me. She held my hand on her deathbed and made me promise to log into her account, to pretend to be her, to slowly ease you out of the grief, so you wouldn't kill yourself. Sebastian's chest was heaving. He was shaking his head so hard, I thought his neck might snap. No. You're lying. You're trying to hurt me because I left you. Because of the wedding. You're crazy. Am I? I picked up my sketchbook from the table and threw it at his feet. It fell open. On the pages were the exact sketches of the Whispers of the Soul collection, the silver bleeding rose, the fallen bird silhouette. But these sketches were dated 2 years ago, drawn in my distinct, delicate hand, covered in my messy handwritten notes. I gave you those designs through Stella's chat, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. I told you they were sketches Stella found online. But they were mine, Sebastian. I painted them while you were asleep in our bed, dreaming of a dead girl, while I was sitting in the dark trying to figure out how to make you love the woman who was actually standing right in front of you. Sebastian stared down at the sketchbook. He fell to his knees. His hands shook as he touched the paper. He recognized the strokes. He recognized the annotations. He had spent weeks analyzing these exact lines, praising Stella for her incredible artistic intuition, telling her that she was the only one who truly understood his soul. And all the while, the hands that had drawn them were the hands that had cooked his dinner, ironed his shirts, and held him when he had nightmares. Aria, he whispered, his voice completely breaking. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face, his eyes filled with a sudden, devastating realization that seemed to crush his very spine. It was always you? Yes, I said. It was always me. The girl who stayed up with me until 4 a.m. when I was having panic attacks. Me. The girl who sent me the hand-drawn cards for my birthday. Me. The girl who saved my life when I tried to jump off that balcony. I wasn't there physically, Sebastian. But the words that convinced you to step down, the words you said saved your soul, I typed them. I typed them while sitting next to you on the sofa, watching you cry, pretending I didn't know why you were hurting. Sebastian let out a sound, a choked, guttural wail that didn't sound human. He slid off his knees onto the floor, clutching his head, his body writhing in an agony so intense it looked physical. My God, he sobbed, his face pressed against the dusty hardwood floor. What have I done? What have I done to you? You left me to die, I said, my voice completely devoid of emotion. You told me my pain was suffocating. You told me to take a cab to the hospital while my appendix was rupturing because you had to fly to Seattle to find a girl who had been in a grave for 3 years. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, he screamed, his hands reaching out to grab the hem of my jeans, but I stepped back, out of his reach. He crawled forward on his knees, his face wet with tears and dirt, his composure completely destroyed. Aria, please. I didn't know. If I had known, I would have never. I would have given you everything. I love you. It was always you I loved, I just didn't see it. Please come back with me. We can still have the wedding. I'll make it up to you for the rest of my life. The rest of your life? I looked down at him, feeling nothing but a profound, empty weight. Sebastian, the man you are, the cold, polite, arrogant designer who looks down on everyone, that is who you really are. The vulnerable, sensitive man you showed to Stella was only ever a projection of your own selfishness. You loved Stella because she was a screen you could pour your misery into without ever having to give anything back. You didn't want a wife. You wanted a therapist you didn't have to pay. No, that's not true, he wept, gripping his own chest. I love you, Aria. Please don't leave me. I'll die without you. I will actually die. Then die, I said softly. The words fell into the quiet room like heavy stones. Sebastian froze. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a desperate, childish terror. I spent 3 years keeping you alive because of a promise to a dead girl, I said, looking out the window at the rain. But Stella is gone. And my promise is fulfilled. Your life is your own now, Sebastian. If you want to jump, jump. If you want to ruin your career, ruin it. I don't care anymore. I walked over to the door, opened it wide, and stood beside it. Get out of my house. Sebastian didn't leave easily. He stayed on my floor for hours, weeping, begging, and screaming until his voice was entirely gone. Eventually, when his strength left his body, Cole arrived, not with his usual arrogant smirk, but with a pale, terrified face. He had followed Sebastian's car and had been waiting downstairs, listening to the muffled screams. When Cole saw Sebastian collapsed on the floor, ruined and clutching my sketchbook like a dying man clutching a crucifix, he didn't say a word to me. He looked at me with a profound, terrifying respect and a deep, lingering fear. He helped Sebastian up, draping his arm over his shoulder, and practically dragged him out of the room. Before they left, Sebastian turned his head, his eyes empty and dead. Aria, he whispered. I closed the door in his face. The silence that followed was beautiful. I walked over to the window. The rain had finally stopped, and the first pale, golden rays of the morning sun were beginning to peek over the brick wall opposite my studio. I picked up my phone, my real phone, and deleted the burner account. I took the SIM card out of Stella's old phone, broke it in half, and threw it into the trash. Then, I walked back to my easel. I looked at the canvas I had been working on. It was a painting of a woman standing on the edge of a high cliff, looking out over a vast, stormy sea. But she wasn't jumping. She was looking at the horizon, where the clouds were parting to reveal a brilliant, golden light. I picked up my brush, dipped it into the brightest yellow on my palette, and began to paint the sun.